Hey everyone, a massive, enthusiastic welcome to all our PyLadies Rivers learners. I am absolutely thrilled to be with you today for this Week 5 explainer on Python functions. Now, if you're just starting out, taking a deep breath, and kind of wondering if this is the week things get super complicated, please just relax. You are in exactly the right place. My goal today is to keep things warm, entirely jargon-free, and most importantly, deeply practical. So whether you're typing away on a laptop or you're coding on the bus using PyDroid on your Android phone, it doesn't matter. We are going to conquer Python functions together, step by step. Let's quickly look at our roadmap for this session. We'll be covering 1. Introduction to Python functions. 2. Why do functions matter? 3. Creating your first function. 4. Parameters and arguments explained. 5. Positional, keyword, and default. And finally, 6. Mistakes and best practices. Section 1. Introduction to Python functions. All right, let's just dive right into our very first core concept. So, have you ever been working on a mini project, maybe calculating some numbers or printing out a specific greeting, and you suddenly realize you're just copying and pasting the exact same lines of code over and over again? It feels super tedious, right? It makes your workspace look totally cluttered. And worse, if you realize you made a tiny mistake in that block of code, you have to go back and fix it in literally every single place you pasted it. Well, that right there is the main pain point we're going to solve today. So what actually is a function? Well, simply put, a function is a reusable block of code that performs a specific single task. Think of it kind of like a recipe that you write down once and keep in a box. Whenever you want to bake that specific cake, you don't have to invent the whole recipe from scratch, do you? No, you just pull out the card and follow the instructions. In Python, a function allows us to save a set of instructions under a specific name, and we can just call upon that name whenever we need those instructions carried out. And honestly, here's the best part. You are already a function user. You've actually been using built-in functions since week 1. When you use print to display text, you're using a built-in function. The creators of Python wrote all the complex code required to display text on a monitor and wrapped it up in a neat little package named print. Built-in functions are ready to use right out of the box. Custom functions, on the other hand, are the ones we build ourselves to solve our own specific problems. So today, you're making the leap from just using Python's tools to building your own. Section 2. Why do functions matter? Now that we know what they are, let's talk about why this concept is an absolute game changer for writing clean and efficient code. This perfectly illustrates the power of functions. Imagine you're building a program for a local school here in Nigeria, and you need to calculate the term's school fees, including boarding and PTA levies, for 100 different students. Without functions, you'd have to write the exact same mathematical formula 100 times in your script. It would be a messy, giant wall of text. But with a function, you write the fee calculation rule just once, give it a descriptive name like calculate_fees, and then you just reuse it 100 times. It saves time, saves space, and keeps your code beautifully clean. Section 3. Creating your first function. So functions make our lives easier, for sure. As we move into the actual syntax of how we write one, remember that if you're coding on your Android phone using PyDroid, the syntax is exactly the same as on a laptop, so you can easily follow right along with us. Building a function happens in 5 really simple steps. First, we start with the word def. This is just short for define. It tells Python, hey, listen up, I am defining something new right now. Step 2 is giving it a descriptive name. If it calculates fees, call it calculate_fees, not just stuff or X. Step 3, you add parentheses, those little curved brackets. We'll see what goes inside them in a second. Step 4 is placing a colon at the very end of that line. This colon tells Python, get ready, the instructions are about to start on the next line. And finally, step 5 is indentation. Any code you write underneath the def line must be pushed in with some spaces. That indentation is exactly how Python knows those instructions actually belong inside the function and aren't just regular code. Section 4. Parameters and arguments explained. I know, these sound like very scary, highly technical terms, but I promise you, they represent very simple concepts that you deal with every single day. Let's define these clearly before we do anything else. When you create a function, you often need to pass some information into it so it can do its job. A parameter is essentially an empty bag that you set up when you create the function. It's just a placeholder waiting for information. An argument, on the other hand, is the actual concrete data, the actual items or the actual money that you put into that bag when you finally run the function. Let's make this stick with an everyday Nigerian errand analogy. Say you tell a younger sibling, go to the market and buy tomatoes. The instruction to buy a specific item is the parameter. It's the placeholder for the task. But when you physically hand them a crispy 500 naira note to pay for it, that specific 500 naira note is the argument. The parameter is what the function expects to receive, and the argument is the actual concrete value it gets when it does the job. Section 5. Positional, keyword, and default. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we can actually give instructions in a few different ways when we pass these arguments into our functions. We have positional arguments and keyword arguments. Positional arguments mean the order strictly matters. Think of it like giving a taxi driver directions. Turn left, then turn right, then stop. If they do those out of order, you end up in the completely wrong place. Python expects positional arguments in the exact order you defined the parameters. Keyword arguments, however, are explicitly named. It's more like telling the taxi driver, final destination, Port Cart Mall. Because you explicitly named the destination, it really doesn't matter what order you say things in. Python knows exactly which value belongs to which parameter because you named it directly. And this brilliantly leads us to default parameters. Think of default parameters as a convenient safety net or a backup plan. Let's say you send someone to buy something, and you just say, go to the market. If you forget to tell them which specific market to go to, they might default to the closest one, say Mile 1 Market. In Python, you can give a parameter a default value. If the user provides a specific argument, Python uses it. But if the user forgets, Python doesn't crash. It just calmly uses the default backup plan you provided. It makes your code incredibly robust. Section 6. Mistakes and Best Practices. As we transition into our final segment today, I want to reassure you of something super important. Making mistakes is a perfectly normal, entirely expected part of a professional developer's journey. Even senior engineers make these mistakes. The real secret is just knowing how to spot them. So, here are the classic beginner pitfalls you will inevitably run into and how to fix them. First, forgetting the colon at the end of your def line. If Python throws a syntax error on your function definition, always check for the colon first. Second, incorrect indentation. If your instructions aren't indented, Python thinks they're outside the function. And third, calling the function before you defining it. Python reads your script from top to bottom. If you tell it to calculate underscore fees on line 1, but you don't actually define the function until line 10, Python gets confused because it hasn't learned that word yet. Always define your functions at the top before you try to use them. And to go from writing code that simply works to writing code that is beautiful and professional, follow these best practices. Use descriptive names like calculate school fees is so much better than calc-sf. Keep your functions focused on a single practical task. Don't make one function try to calculate fees, print receipts, and send emails all at the same time. And finally, follow the PEP 8 style guide, which is basically the official rulebook for Python formatting. It suggests using lowercase words separated by underscores for your function names. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. What everyday task would you automate today? Could you write a simple function that calculates the total cost of buying phone airtime for 3 different family members? Or maybe a function that simulates checking a bank balance after withdrawal? I strongly encourage you to open up PyDroid or VS Code right now and just try building it. Creating custom functions is where you truly start to command the language rather than just speaking it. Keep practicing, don't fear the error messages, and I will see you in part 2.